And hello again, welcome to my channel. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate the fact that you are watching this because it turns out that now my channel's got over 1.3 million views, which is great. And if you like and subscribe and all that stuff, it helps the algorithm. So do that. This is going to be an interesting video because I'm not going to be playing any drums. So some of you will find this boring. Others will find it extremely interesting, depending on where you are in your musical journey and if you ever plan on performing in front of anybody. I have an attorney friend of mine I've known for many, many years, Ralph Flick. And let me start by saying, what you're about to see does not constitute legal advice, tax advice, performance advice, copyright advice, any kind of advice. So anything you do as a result of watching this video, you're agreeing by watching the video to hold Ralph, anybody he knows, me, anybody I know, or anybody connected with us in any way, harmless from any damage you might incur. And this goes for this video and all the other videos I have made or will make in the future.
You're learning, Chris. Good job.
Yeah. Ralph helped me sell my business, and so we worked very closely, and I learned all the magic of disclaimers. So there you go. Now, the thing about Ralph, and the reason he's here, is not only is he a very qualified attorney in the Tacoma area, business law primarily, right?
Yeah.
He's a musician. He has a band. Now, he's not a drummer, but we're not going to hold that against him. He's a guitar player and a singer. In fact, you have a website? Why don't you tell him about the website?
I do. Yeah. My current music project is called Low Light Room. So lowlightroom, one word.com. And I've actually been working on this website quite a bit recently. I built it myself, and it has all my music and the dates that I'm playing on it and everything. So
cool.
Appreciate that.
Very good. But what I thought we'd talk about today, besides Ralph's background and a little bit of history for him, is what kind of rules as musicians do we have to worry about when it comes to performance or even putting things online, all that kind of stuff. But we'll get into that in a minute. First of all, let's see. I have these questions written down. I'm supposed to very subtly look over here so you're not aware that I'm reading them. So let me just, let's see. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, career, etc.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah. No, I'm from Southern California originally. I grew up there, and that actually shaped a lot my musical interest because I grew up there in the 80s. And so the music scene of the 80s in Los Angeles was, kind of formative for me. But I went to my undergraduate degree in economics, Long Beach State. Then I have my law degree from Loyola, and I went to USC for my MBA. So I have all of those. And then we moved here in 2008. We moved up here when our kids were little. So I've lived here in the Seattle Tacoma area for since then. We love it here. I just love it here. So that's where I grew up and my background. And so I was a lawyer I still am a lawyer, as you know.
Yeah. You play one on TV.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I was a corporate lawyer, a corporate in-house lawyer at the beginning of my career. And then now I do my law practice is primarily a side practice because I'm a professor also at Pacific Lutheran University, where I teach business law.
So when you mentioned you were shaped in California, as far as music goes, when did your musical interest really take off?
Yeah, I can almost peg it. So the first concert I ever went to, believe it or not, was the Jackson 5.
I love
at what was then called the Fabulous Forum in Inglewood, which is now where SoFi football stadium is. I guess the original Forum is still there. The racetrack that was next to it is what they built SoFi on. But anyway, so my mom worked at a bank, and they had corporate tickets, and so we got to go to some of the shows. And but the first show I ever went to was the Jackson 5. The second show I ever went to was the Knack.
Oh, hang on a second. Let me just mention Jackson 5.
Yeah.
I Want You Back was one of my favorite songs. It still is. And I had a 45 of that song that I cut off the back of a cereal box. That probably predates. Does that, you remember? Because when I was a kid,
those.
You could cut it, and we played like several times before it wore out. But
anyway, I remember those.
So the Knack. Okay, there's a blast from the past.
So this was that's late 70s, right? So then, and that era, that's kind of the end of disco, the beginning of punk, and then of course the new wave stuff in Los Angeles. So anyway, I listened a lot to, there's a radio station in Los Angeles called KROQ, and it was a very formative station in those years. It was known for bringing bands, discovering bands, bringing bands over from the UK and stuff, and mostly alternative music is what it was called then. I don't think alternative is really is used anymore like it was. But that was the kind of music that I listened to. But the first band that I would say that I was really super into was the Police. And they're a good example of this because they grew out of that. They grew up in the late 70s and then became like one of the biggest, most popular bands. And I saw them going back to that same property at Hollywood Park Racetrack in September of 1983. And the bill was Berlin, The Fix, the Thompson Twins, and the Police, and it was like this seminal show. And so that was really kind of that was the music that I really grew up with.
And when did you pick up an instrument and begin to learn it?
Yeah, so my mom made me play piano when I was a kid, and I hated it. I hated it. And it was one of those things where all the other kids in the neighborhood were out playing. I had to practice piano, so I really hated it. And as soon as I could stop doing it, as soon as she didn't make me do it, I stopped. I was like, I hate that. But I was pretty young at the time, and I took piano lessons and played in recitals and all that stuff. And so my understanding of music really is on a keyboard, right? I understand music through the keyboard, which is hard as a guitar player because the music is not linear like that on a guitar. But anyway, so I abandoned it. And I had no interest. I'd not play in band in school or anything. But when I was in, I guess, middle school, high school, that's when I said, okay, I want to play in a band. And so my friends and I got together and I played bass.
Really?
Because Sting played bass. So like that was, and I played bass in a kind of like a garage punk band. And you sent me the questions ahead of time, so it made me think back to this.
Yeah.
We used to do these concerts in my garage, and we would make a flyer, and there would be like 10 bands on the bill, but there was only like 6 or 7 of us that were, so all the bands were just variations of it. Yeah, right. Everyone played in everyone else, all these different bands. And so that's kind of how I started. That was very, very awful. We used to tried to record some stuff on cassette. I actually uncovered one of those cassettes during COVID when I was going through old stuff. But that's kind of how I started in that era. And I did really, the local punk scene in Los Angeles in the 80s was very robust. So there were a lot of bands there, bands like The Descendants, Uniform Choice. These are bands that were in that scene. Those are the kind of the known bands from that era. Black Flag is probably one you may have heard of. Others.
I use still Wasps, I think, is what
Right. Yeah.
So tell me, with the music that you're involved with now, some of it is original, some's covers.
Right.
So as a working musician,
Yeah.
a lot of musicians are confused by this whole copyright thing. I mean, I know that churches, like our church, we have these music things we get from some word publishing or something, and they have to pay for all that.
Correct. Yeah.
And so and I played cover band since I was 15 years old.
Right.
And I've never paid a dime to anybody. Theoretically, if you're watching, I might have, I might not have.
You've complied with all the relevant law.
Yeah, exactly. But I was told that no, if you play in a club or you play anywhere, every time you play a song that's not yours, you're supposed to send somebody money.
Right. Well, the way that works is it's actually the venue that has the legal responsibility to pay the licensing companies. And these licensing organizations, like ASCAP and BMI, and what those companies do is they accumulate the rights, the performance rights. I don't want to get too far off track, and I'm not a super expert in this area, but one of the things in this area of the law is there's all kinds of rights. So if you think about like you have some CDs here, right? In the days when everyone had CDs. Well, you have the recording is one copyright. The publishing rights is a different copyright. So the right to record that song, the ownership rights to that song, the publishing rights are different from the recording right. And then the artistry on the CD, that's another right. So there's all these different interlaying rights. And in the case of performance rights, the way that the licensing companies have done it, and it makes sense, They don't want to track down all these bands.
Right.
So they put the onus on the venue, because it's the venue that's commercializing the music, right? It's the venue that's collecting the cover or selling the alcohol or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and then paying the band. So it's the venue that owes the licensing fees.
How do they track it? Per song? Per
Well,
what do we-
there's an algorithm for this, and so like it's based on, and it's a black box from what I understand. Like the algorithm is not a public algorithm, right? They calculate this, so it depends on how popular of a song it is, right? So like Taylor Swift for example, will get a much larger share of this pool of money they collect than somebody who just uploads their song to Spotify and signs up with one of the licensing agencies. But so the way they do this is they actually, and I've had some clients who this has happened to. There are auditors out there, and they go to these places. They go on Facebook to look for ads for shows and so on, and then they go look in the database of licensees, and if there isn't a match, then they send a bill or a letter to the venue saying, you either need to pay this or buy a license. And so the venue is the one that pays the performance license.
There are thousands and thousands of venues.
Right.
How do they possibly, how many venues actually comply with this?
Well, from my small sample size, a lot of them do, because eventually there's somebody who will, it's my understanding, and I don't know this for sure, but it's my understanding that these auditors are actually, they're free agents. They basically go out, if they find an unlicensed venue and report them, then they get some of the fee.
Spiff. They get a spiff.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think that's how it works. I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But they do have, I know because I have a couple of clients, very small businesses, like one was a bar in Tacoma, another one in Gig Harbor, and they, got a notice saying, hey, we saw that you're having live music, and we see that you don't have a license, and so so they are looking for it.
And then they pay a monthly thing, or
Yeah, the formula depends on how often they have music, and how many seats there are in the they have some formula for deciding how much to charge for that.
do you know how old a song has to be before it's public domain?
Well, so it's and I should have looked this up beforehand. So
Well, this is the push I threw at you. I didn't.
No,
I
no.
asked for this, but-
So copyrights are an interesting intellectual property. They're different in many ways than the other forms like patents and trademarks and so on. A copyright comes into existence on the moment it's created. So like if you were to take out a piece of paper right now and sketch a drawing on it, you immediately under the law, you own the copyright to that sketch. Right? So you own it. And you don't have to register it or get any sort of piece of paper from the government that says this is yours, right? Whereas with a patent, you have to apply. You only have a patent when the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office issues a patent.
Right.
Same thing with the trademark.
So all the original music I've written and recorded is automatically copyrighted to me.
Correct. Now there is a benefit that you can have, like if you do register a copyright, so you don't have to, it's optional. But if you register it, it gives you additional like remedies in the event of an infringement. So if somebody were to steal it and you had it registered, you can sue them for more money than you can pursue more remedies against them than you could if it was unregistered. But the fact that it's registered doesn't tell you about its existence. It just tells you about the remedies that you have.
So I just sent you a copy of a song that I sent in. Actually, my son did it for me because I'm not smart enough to do it yet. He sent it in to Suno. It redid the song and sent it back. It's almost identical to the one I did.
Right.
There's a few subtle differences. Do I still own that, or does Suno own that?
Well, it depends on what their terms of service are. So you would have to, I haven't looked.
Well, I read all the stuff before I clicked the I agree button. I mean, I read every word.
Yeah. Right. Well, and so that click agreement probably covers that issue. My suspicion, my guess would be that a service like that, servicing you like that, you're probably granting them some license to use your work and create a derivative, because that's what the song they sent you back is what's called a derivative work. And so, but it's still based on the same song. So you own the publishing rights, you own the lyrics, the song,
Structure of the song,
structure of the song. Yeah, I mean, to go off on a slight, if you're interested, the most recent case, and these come up occasionally, these infringement cases where someone will say, oh, that popular song, I wrote that.
Right,
You hear
right.
the Rolling Stones have had, Led Zeppelin was involved in one of
Well,
those.
they sample it and then put the sample.
Well, well, samples is a little bit different because sample, you're actually taking a recording.
Oh, okay.
So the recording is a different right than the publishing rights. But I have a story about that too, if you're interested. But
Yeah.
if you're interested in this topic, the most recent one, the Ed Sheeran case, was really interesting because there's some Ed Sheeran song that someone was claiming to own some rights to, and the fundamental idea in music writing is you can't copyright a chord progression, right? Because chords exist.
Mhm.
You know, the scale, the chromatic scale, right? That exists.
Mhm.
It's basically, it's in nature, right? It's like a certain number of megahertz or hertz or whatever, right? Like you can, it exists in nature. So you can't.
So the
can't take-
Debussy couldn't say that's my whole tone scale. The Debussy whole tone scale, even though it has a name on it, he doesn't own it. He
Yeah, right.
didn't
Well,
own it.
right. Well, because the G major scale, you can't copyright that. It exists in nature, right?
Mhm. Okay.
Now, if you put chords together in a certain order and with a certain strum pattern, and so that they are recognizable as a song, then you can copyright that song.
Mhm.
But because there are only 12 notes in the chromatic scale, and there's only so many possible
Yeah.
combinations, and a lot of songs sound a lot like each
Oh yeah.
other.
Oh yeah.
And so Ed Sheeran actually in the trial during his testimony played a guitar and said, listen, this is my song, this is a Beatles song, he just played all these songs that had exactly the same chord progression, exactly the same strum pattern. So it's really hard in that case to
Go after somebody and
Yeah.
say, you stole my song, right?
yeah, no, lyrics are different because lyrics are so much more unique. It's pretty clear. If you a chorus from a
Yeah.
popular song, you can't claim that. Recordings. So the recording is its own copyright. So when you mention samples, so the whoever owns the recording copyright is the one that controls the recording, which is different than the ownership of the publishing rights. So this is why Taylor Swift re-recorded all of her music, because the original owner of the recordings, she got into some squabble with them, and so she created. And if you look at a Taylor Swift song, it'll say the name of the song, it'll say Taylor's version behind it. So she went into a recording studio and just re-recorded all of her music, and then because she lost ownership of her masters of
Wow.
and then I apparently since was able to reacquire them. But just like Michael Jackson at one point owned all the masters of the Beatles catalog.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
so that he didn't own the right to make a new version of the Beatles songs, to record a new version. He owned the recordings, and I think maybe I don't remember which right he owned, but anyway. So there's an example of this. A really interesting example is the Beastie Boys record their second record is called Paul's Boutique. And so they had this big success with their first record, and they
Yeah.
got a lot of money.
I never really was sure why, but that.
I love the Beastie Boys.
Oh,
Yeah.
didn't they have that song about party? Or
Oh yeah.
whatever
Fight
it
for
is?
your right to party.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't have a melody you can really whistle.
Yeah,
That's
no,
the problem.
it's true. But I grew up in that era. That song was super popular.
You're just a kid. You're
Yeah.
just a youngster.
But what happened was they made a lot of money from that record, and they were a rap band, right? They were a punk and a rap band, and so that song, that "Fight for Your Right to Party," was not. It was a joke, actually. It was supposed to be sarcastic.
Yeah.
And then they became known for it. So they took all the money from that and went and made their second record, which is called Paul's Boutique. And apparently, I watched a whole video about this. You could not make Paul's Boutique today, because all it is samples of other songs. And in that era, in that early 90s era, the value of samples hadn't really evolved yet. So bands would use little snippets of each other's songs all the time, and it wasn't the problem. It wasn't until later that it became like, so to acquire the rights to make a record like Paul's Boutique today would be almost impossible to do, because you'd have to get all those rights, pay for all of them, and so on.
So I'm a drummer in my garage band, and I want to put on little neighborhood concerts every week. So I
Right.
open up my garage, and we play all kinds of cover songs. The neighbors gather around and listen.
Yeah.
what am I doing wrong? What am I supposed to do? And how big
Yeah.
of a deal is it?
It's not that big of a deal. I mean, you're not charging for it, so there's no money involved. I still think technically you're supposed to have a performance license for that because it's the right to perform it in public.
Yeah.
Right. Just like if you have a backyard movie night, we have this big inflatable
Yeah.
movie screen. And when the kids were little, we'd have everyone in the backyard. You're technically not supposed to do that. It's a public performance of
Yeah.
somebody else's work. But there's no money involved.
Yeah.
So, there's a little bit of a gray area there. I think the answer, I don't know the answer for certain, but I think the answer is you're supposed to have a performance license, but the chances that somebody would come and audit that and charge
Right.
you for it, it would be very low. There's just not any money in it.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah. I mean, what it sounds like is it sounds like speed limits. There's a speed limit. Hardly anybody pays attention to it. Nobody really does. But if a policeman wants to, and occasionally will, pull somebody over and give them a ticket for 6 miles an hour over,
Yeah.
because technically you're breaking the law.
Yeah.
But civil disobedience means that nobody really takes it seriously. Because I'm thinking about even like, say, a big drumming event, perhaps, where it costs $30 to get in. We're going to break a Guinness World Record. Let's theoretically call it Woodstick.
Yeah.
And let's say that a band shows up and we all play along to a bunch of favorite rock songs.
Yeah.
There was money involved to get in, but it wasn't to see the band. It was to be a part of the record breaking thing.
Yeah. But if you're playing along, like if you're publicly bars and restaurants, for example, can't just turn on the regular Spotify. There's a pro version of Spotify.
Really?
Yeah. So, because it's a commercial use.
Right.
If there's a commercial use, then, there are these exceptions for private use, which is, I think, probably what your neighborhood party would fall under.
Right, right.
But the one thing I did want to point out in your example, that where it's a little bit different than the speed limits, is basically this is a contractual thing, right? So, the rights that the owner owns are their legal rights that they own. The rules for when you have to pay for it and when you don't are made by the owner of the rights, as opposed to, it's not a law that says you have to pay for a performance, right? It's like the law says that the owner of the right has the exclusive ability to decide when and how that work is performed, but it's the rules of the licensing organization that dictate when and how much you have to pay.
So 2 follow-up questions. Number 1, what's the statute of limitations?
Yeah, I don't know the stats. Like if you perform and how, yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Let's hope it's like a week. And second of all, if we were going to do let's say a big get together where we're all going to play music together and it costs $30 to get in, do we as an organization have to write to every single artist's licensing place, or what?
No, that's why these rights organizations exist.
So who would you go to?
ASCAP, BMI.
Any of them? Or
Yeah. Well, no, not. I think you need them because they each own different groups of rights.
So you'd have to send a letter to every one of these places.
Yeah, but there are ways where you can go and buy like a blanket license that covers all the songs. I don't know how to do it because I've never done it before. But that's what a venue will have to do. The venue will have to go, and I think there's like a clearinghouse where you pay it one fee, and then that covers all of the licensed music that are in the portfolios, and then those organizations take that money in
and divide it out,
and then have this algorithm for who gets how much.
I wonder how much it costs. It'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, well, I know that for like smaller venues, it's a few $1,000s a year. If you're just a bar and you have live music in the corner, I think if I remember right, it's a few $1,000s a
So
year.
I wonder, one performance, like once a year, that kind of thing. I wonder what that would cost.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I need to check into that.
I mean, it depends on the situation, on the commercial situation, and on the rights. I don't have exact examples, but I can give you an example. I know I'm familiar with. I won't say who it was, but there's somebody who wanted to use the James Bond song in a video for a sales seminar, right? And so they looked into how much this would cost. It was a single use, one day, to play the song at this conference that they were having for their salespeople, and it was
Right.
$35,000,
Oh my
and that was in the late 1990s. So, they, I think what the licensing agencies do is they look at, well, what's the commercial application here? How much value is being used? And then
Yeah.
they set their pricing that way.
Mm.
Number of people.
Surge pricing, kind of like
Yeah.
Lyft and Uber.
Right. Well, I know also, like, when I was the co-president of my PTA when my kids were little,
Mm.
and we used to have movie night. We would do this, it was called like a date night thing where we would some parents would volunteer, we'd
Mhm.
put on a movie,
Yep.
and you could drop off your kids and then and go out on a date. And so, but we found out we had to pay $600 a year, blanket
Wow.
license, as a site license
Yeah,
for a school to show movies. So that,
Yeah, killed it probably.
that's on no, we paid it.
Oh, you did?
Well, because a couple of we just paid out of the PTA budget.
Is that
and
Gig Harbor?
it was in Gig Harbor.
Well,
Yeah,
that's why.
yeah, right.
Gig
Uh,
Harbor, they can afford it.
but I mean, that's the very low end. I guess
Yeah.
the reason I'm saying that is, like, it's a
Mhm.
school, for a school license, a site license for a school to show movies is $600 a year.
Wow.
And so everything else is going to be north of that, right?
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Crazy. So then, internet, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Now, I know that I did a recording I actually charted a song called Limelight by Rush. In fact, I just happen to have the drum chart. It took me a long time to get this thing charted because, Neil Peart, he
yeah.
basically did all kinds of
Yeah.
time changes,
Right.
time signature changes. But by the way, this is what the chart is looking like. This is it right here, okay?
Wow, that's
Oh, and I dropped the page.
impressive.
Oh, that's a different song. Yeah, that's okay. Put that over there. But yeah, this is the chart for Limelight, and on YouTube I played it. In fact, on my channel you can find it,
Yeah.
but I couldn't play the song
Right.
because YouTube would zap me.
Correct.
So if
YouTube has that figured out.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so but if you take the actual song in one channel and put my drum track in the other channel and start at the exact same time, it's hilarious because the beats are exactly the same.
Uh-huh.
The very, very end, I kind of screwed up the little boom, but other than that, it's like having two drummers. It's really
Yeah.
kind of cool. But anyway, so that is frustrating, I think, for a lot of people because,
Yeah.
they want to play along with a song or whatever, and then YouTube comes along and says, oh, you can't do that. I mean, most people aren't monetizing their YouTube channel. They're not making any money at it.
Right.
So why would that be a problem?
Well, because it's it's somebody owns those rights, and YouTube is distributing those rights. My understanding of this, and again, you should always, call a copyright lawyer.
Yeah.
Not call I'm not an intellectual property lawyer, but my understanding of this is, and you'll see this, some YouTubers will have two channels, and they'll have the channels that they are like YouTubers that are doing song instruction videos. So, like, if you want to learn how to play a song, you can usually go on YouTube. If it has any popularity, type that song in, and someone will have, here's how to play it.
Right.
And so so YouTube has a different license that you pay for, a different account that allows you to use the licensed music, and then that goes into this pool of money.
Right.
So what I think some YouTubers do is if they have original music that's unlicensed, they do that on a different channel, and then the one where they play licensed music, then they run their
Have to pay a thing to do it, right?
Yeah, and YouTube obviously has a algorithm that can figure out if there's licensed music that's included in a video.
Okay, so last subject, and this is new and I think probably a lot of uncharted waters, and that, of course, is AI. They have, with Tiffany, whatever her name is, some AI actress is going to star in her own movie.
Yeah, I just saw that.
And music, of course, I'm sure, studio musicians, like I mentioned, I sent that song and it came back sounding completely professional and wonderful. Well, a friend of mine who's a guitar player, he had a bunch of original music, and this was years ago, he paid studio musicians in Nashville to record all of it.
Right.
Who needs studio musicians anymore?
Yeah.
Aren't musicians quaking in their boots?
Those that want to get paid for it, I think, are. Yeah, this is one of your questions, so that you sent me before, so I thought about it a little bit. If you think back, like, where the value is if you think about this from a commercial perspective, you've got your artistry part of it, and then you've got the commercial part of it, right? So if what motivates you is the artistry of it, that's in my case, like I have no interest in making any money from my music. I just want to play. You know, my objective is to manufacture opportunities to play live.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And my own music.
Mhm.
So so I can do that. I don't have to worry about the trying to make a living at it.
Mhm.
Right. But if you trace it back, it really all goes back to Napster. Right. If you think those of you
Yep.
who remember
Oh
Napster,
yeah. Yeah.
because what Napster did, Napster was the first time once all the music became digital, right? Once the record companies started making a lot of money off of selling CDs, where the music was converted into digital, ones and zeros basically, then that it became, once the consumer technology came where you could rip
All
the
bets are off.
song,
Yep.
right? And then so if you think about why did you pay $15 for a CD in 1995 or
Yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah.
The reason you paid for it is there were only two ways to hear a song that you liked: listen to it on the radio, or buy the CD or the cassette or the album or whatever, right? And the record companies controlled that entire space. They can essentially controlled the radio stations too, and they controlled they decided what bands would get recorded. The equipment to record was millions of dollars.
Yeah,
So like there was this gate to making recorded music, and then it was controlled by the record industry. And what Napster did was it broke that, and the record industry's initial reaction to this was sue everybody, right? And they sued college students who were downloading songs. I remember that era.
Yep.
So that was kind of the opening. And then but then it was really iTunes that came on and figured out a legitimate business model. And just because Apple of its scale, they were able to go to the record companies and say, look, the genie's out of the bottle here.
Yeah.
If you want to make any money off of it, we have the largest platform of devices in the world, but 99 cents a song. So it broke the album. It broke between Napster and iTunes. There was a lot of value that was sort of trapped in the album, the recorded albums. You had to pay $15 if you only liked one song.
Yeah.
And so between Napster and Apple, it sort of broke the value down, right? And where now, instead of the record companies having captured most of that value, it's now at iTunes, it's now at Apple. Apple grabbed that basically. And then when the internet evolved and it moved onto the streaming services, so now your Spotify, Apple's still in that space, Pandora, yeah. So they now collect all of the value and give little pieces now to the artists. So the artists always just got pieces, even back in the album days, most of that record, that $15 record, the artist got $2 of it.
Yeah. Right.
So or $1 or $2, like the big artist got $2,
Yeah.
And so it sort of broke the value chain, right? So now there's no value really in recording. I shouldn't say there's no value. I don't mean it that way. Like artistically, there's some value. It's an artistic expression.
Yeah.
But how much is a recording worth now versus that system that we had before? It's worth very little. So anybody looking to make a recording now, they're starting with an economic opportunity that is so much smaller to begin with, and that's going to filter down. Like you're not going to pay a session drummer more than you ever are going to make on the whole song in the first place, unless you're just doing it for fun.
Right.
So that has kind of pushed down. So the value chain has been gobbled up by now the streamers. They really own most of the economic value, and artists are just getting less than they ever have. And so it changed the music industry. Like back in my day, right? You made your money off the record.
Right.
The live performance was basically an advertisement for the record, right? You tour to support a record.
And now live is how you make your money.
Yeah. Well,
the spectacle of seeing somebody play live is what people still have to pay for.
Correct, because that at least can't be emulated at the moment right now.
Well,
Will there be an AI band? Yeah, I'm sure there will be. But the other thing is, really, I mean, and that's for like the Taylor Swifts and so on, the big tours, and they're becoming fewer and fewer. But if you think back in the 80s, right, the number of bands that played at the arena level, there were many more of them that do. Now bands that are kind of an equal popularity to the bands that played arenas in the 80s are playing smaller venues.
Why?
Well, it's just because the economics of it are such that, again, there's no money really. There's no record to sell. So there's no record company that is promoting the band through the limited distribution of the radio. You can hear music now all across. So, I mentioned K-Rock to begin with, right? The bands I liked were the bands that K-Rock played.
Right.
Who decided that got on K-Rock? Well, it was the station manager plus the record companies.
Right.
And so it was a limited filter so there were fewer bands that had more marketing money behind them. And now there's so many bands and it's so the barrier to entry is so small now.
Yeah.
To your point, you can now make a song, that song that you sent through that app, you could upload that to Spotify today and you'd be in the same distribution system as Taylor Swift. That didn't used to be possible.
Yeah.
So that's why the economics have just shifted. So smaller bands, and I actually book some bands at a venue in Gig Harbor, and so I interact with some of them. They're not making money on live performances either because there just isn't. COVID really had a lasting impact on that. And so where they are making their money is in things like merchandise and, VIP packages, special packages. Some of these bands that have been around for a while and have a installed base will do a cruise. They'll book a cruise boat. You can go on a cruise with your favorite band. Things that you can't replicate through the streaming services. So that's how bands are having to try to find ways to make some money off of their artistic expression, because really all the value now lives at the tech level. Right? Yeah.
So in closing, what advice do you have for the aspiring musician? I mean, I'll tell you, my dad, who was a very, very fine pianist, I mean, he hung out with like Quincy Jones and Ray Charles, people like that. In fact, my mom, I don't know if she still does, but for years she was getting, is Quincy Jones still alive? I don't even know, but she was getting birthday cards from him every year, right? But he told me, Chris, music is a great hobby.
Yeah.
Don't try to make a living out of it.
Yeah.
I didn't listen. I toured for a couple of years and it was fun, but yeah, he was right. It's a tough life and you don't make a lot of money, but today it's almost impossible. So what do you tell the musician?
Yeah. Well, this is a tough one. I don't know that I'm the best one to to be giving advice to musicians. I'm sort of hardly I'm like a hobbyist musician, so like, I'm trying to do more of my own stuff. And I think I mentioned, I hope you don't mind if I mention this.
No, plug away.
So what I've done essentially is sort of manufactured my own opportunities. And I think that is something that, I think I see a lot of other people I interact with. They sort of think, well, I'm going to practice a lot. I'm going to make this great art. And then somebody will call me and ask me to, and that just doesn't work like that. So you have to actually, it's sort of like anything in business, right? You need to go, I teach in a business school, and, you need to go manufacture the opportunity.
Market.
Or just sell. Yeah. Or you need to look for and create your own opportunity, right? So like, the place in Gig Harbor where I play a lot, my wife and I used to go there all the time. They had a little stage. And so one day I just went to the manager and said, hey, can I play here?
Yeah.
And interestingly, to our previous discussion, her initial response was no, because we found out we need a license and we don't have one yet. And but then they got the license and then I started playing there. Well, had I never asked that question, right? And from that, I got a bunch of gigs, and then those gigs led to other gigs. I got to know, so you just have to go create your own opportunities. But you also, I think, have to decide what you want out of it. Like in my case, I just want to play live. Like that's my thing I like to do.
Yeah.
And I want to play my own music live. So, there's a limited market for that, right?
Yeah.
Like there are lots of bars that'll play a band to play covers, that people can dance to. And there's a lot of great bands that do that. And I have, no disrespect for it. I just don't want to do that.
Right.
So I have to go try to find the places. So I would say, number one, find your opportunity. And the second one I would say is, it's only going to this has always been the case. A very, very, very small percentage of people ever make any money off.
Oh, yeah.
So I would say find something else that you can earn a living off of
Yeah.
that allows you to still do your art.
You sound like my dad. Dear old dad.
Well, I mean, I remember there was a Rolling Stone article. I used to be a subscriber of Rolling Stone back in the 80s, right? And I read an article in there. This is back in the 80s. They said, and this is back in the old system where you did have the record companies and a control of all of it. They said at the time, 15% of all artists ever break even or do better. 15%.
Yeah.
And that was in the 1980s when you had that economic system in place. I would imagine that percentage is much, much, much lower now.
Yeah.
And so you just have to, I think, I don't know, managing your expectations, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's possible. Maybe you make a song, maybe it becomes a viral hit, maybe somebody asks for it to be in a movie, and but that's like a lottery ticket.
Oh, sure. Well, it's like
And-
trying to be in the NFL. You know, how many football players end up in the NFL?
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, or really sort of anything like that. You know, it's a pyramid, and the people that you see are the very, 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 very top of that pyramid.
Yeah.
And every so often, there's a story like Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm not a fan of his necessarily, but I know that the way he became famous is he sang on some videos. His mom posted it on YouTube. It went viral. You know, he became a celebrity because through that path, not because somebody discovered him.
Right.
Like wasn't the case in the old days. So, but how many other Justin Biebers are out there who are equally talented?
Just waiting for that break.
Yeah. But why him?
Yeah.
You know, it's just fate. Yeah.
Well, not down on a depressing note or anything, but hopefully we all play.
That's what
because
happens when you invite the lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. We're playing music because we love it. That's
Right.
the key. Okay.
Exactly.
And Ralph, thanks very much.
Yeah,
If
thank you
people
for
have
having me.
questions,
I appreciate it.
do you want them to have any contact information?
I'm happy to. I probably won't know the answer most of the time, but I'm always happy to talk with people. And you can find me. My website's lowlightroom.com, and my contact information is on there.
Great.
And I'm on social media too.
Okay.
So, I'm trying to do more
Yep.
of that. So
Flick FLICK.
right. Yeah.
Ralph,
Yeah.
thank
Nice
you.
to
Good
meet
to
you.
see you
Thanks
again.
for having me. Yeah.
Thanks for watching,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.